It's 7 a.m. Your alarm screams. You slap it quiet. You shuffle to the kitchen. You pour cereal from a box, milk from a jug. You eat standing up, scrolling your phone, half asleep. Breakfast, done in 90 seconds. You didn't hunt for it. You didn't dig for it. You didn't risk your life for it. It just appeared. Now rewind. 50,000 years, 100,000. Rewind until the box, the jug, the phone, all of it vanishes. The sun is coming up, you're awake, and you are hungry. So here's the question nobody asks. Before farms, before fridges, before the word breakfast even existed, what did you eat when you woke up? The answer will surprise you, because it wasn't just meat. Think about that. For most of human history, hundreds of thousands of years, there was no first meal waiting. There was no menu. There was only the world outside, and your empty stomach, and a single quiet question every single morning. What is there to eat today? Let's go find out. Start with a cave in South Africa, Border Cave, in the Lubombo Mountains, near the border of Eswatini. In 2020, the archaeologist Lynn Wadley and her team published something extraordinary in the journal Science. Buried in the ash of an ancient fireplace, they found little charred cylinders, burnt plants, roasted roots. They were 170,000 years old. One line from a lab. That's the doorway. Now step through it into the morning that made them. You wake up on a grass bed. The fire from last night is a bed of gray ash. You're cold, you're hungry, and you know exactly where to dig. You walk out at dawn with a sharpened stick. You find the plant a little star of leaves, flat against the ground. Underneath it, hidden in the dirt, is the prize. A fat, starchy root. The scientists call it hypoxis. You just call it food. You dig, you pull, you carry it back. You bury it in the warm ashes of the fire to roast. And you wait. That's breakfast. 170,000 years ago. Roasted root vegetables, cooked in a hearth by someone who looked up at the same sun you did. Now I can hear the objection. Wait, weren't ancient humans meat eaters? Isn't that the whole paleo diet? Steak and more steak? Here's the thing. That story is half a story. Yes, you hunted. Yes, meat was precious, but meat is dangerous to get, and some mornings the hunt comes back empty. You cannot eat a spear. What kept you alive between the good hunts, what filled the quiet, hungry mornings, was the stuff you could gather. The roots, the seeds, the nuts, the things that don't run away. And we can prove it, because ancient plants leave a trace. Go to Tafaralt, in Morocco, a cave also called the Grotte des Pigeons. In 2024, a team led by Zineb Mubtahai and Clervia Jouwen at the Max Planck Institute studied the chemistry locked inside 15,000-year-old human teeth. Zinc, strontium, nitrogen. The isotopes don't lie. And the isotopes said, these people ate a lot of plants. Not a little, a lot. Acorns, pine nuts, wild pulses, whole meals built from what grew around them, thousands of years before anyone planted a single seed. So picture that morning too. You crack acorns against a stone. You pick out the nut meat with your fingers. You've got a pile of pine nuts drying near the fire. It isn't glamorous, but it's steady. And steady is what keeps you breathing when the deer don't come. And it takes know-how. A raw acorn is bitter packed with tannins that turn your mouth to leather. You can't just eat it. You have to crush it, soak it, leach the bitterness out with water, sometimes for hours, before it's safe and sweet enough to swallow. Nobody handed you that recipe. You learned it from your mother, who learned it from hers, all the way back. Breakfast, it turns out, was inherited knowledge, a chain of quiet lessons passed down across 1,000 generations, just so you could eat. Now here's where it gets clever, because you weren't just eating raw food off the ground, you were cooking. You were preparing. Go back to Shanidar Cave in the mountains of Iraqi Kurdistan. It's a famous place Neanderthals were buried there tens of thousands of years ago. In 2022, the archaeologist Saren Kabuksu and her colleagues looked at charred scraps of ancient meals from the cave floor. What they found was a recipe. Not one ingredient, a blend. Wild grass seeds, wild mustard, bitter vetch, wild pea, and crucially, the seeds had been pounded, soaked, and mixed together before cooking. Read that again. Someone soaked the seeds, someone ground them, someone deliberately mixed a bitter seed with a milder one to balance the taste. That's not survival. That's a cook. That's a person standing over a fire, tasting, adjusting, making the food better. 100,000 years before a single cookbook existed. Someone in that cave already knew that a good breakfast takes a little effort, and it's older than you think. Back in 2011, the researcher Amanda Henry examined the fossilized plaque the hardened tartar still stuck to Neanderthal teeth from that same cave. Trapped inside it were tiny grains of starch, and those grains were changed, swollen, gelatinized. That is the fingerprint of cooking. It means the Neanderthal chewing that grain had eaten it warm, cooked, probably as something soft, a porridge, a mash, a mush of grain and water. So there it is. Your ancestors ate hot cereal for breakfast. Real cereal, made of real wild grain, just without the cartoon on the box. And to make that cereal, you needed a tool, not a spear, something quieter and just as important, a stone. On the shore of the Sea of Galilee lies a drowned campsite called Ohelo 2. It sat underwater for millennia, sealed away from the air, which means it survived when almost nothing else does. It is 23,000 years old. And among the huts and hearths, archaeologists found a flat grinding stone with the microscopic remains of wild wheat and wild barley still ground into its surface. Sit with that. 23,000 years ago, someone knelt on this exact spot, poured wild grain onto a rock, and rubbed it back and forth with another rock until it turned to flour. Morning after morning, your arms would ache, your knees would go numb, but you'd keep grinding because flour is food that lasts, food that cooks fast, food a hungry child can actually eat. This is the part nobody tells you about the ancient world. So much of survival wasn't the hunt, it was the grind. Literally, hours on your knees over a stone, turning tough seeds into something soft enough to swallow. The men and women who did that quiet, boring, back-breaking work fed everyone. And they did it before the sun was even fully up. But it gets better, because they didn't stop at porridge. They made bread. I know how that sounds. Bread means farms, means wheat fields, means the whole modern world, right? Wrong? And the proof is a pile of black crumbs in the Jordanian desert. The site is called Shubaika 1. In 2018, the archaeobotanist Amaya Aranz Otaigui and her team, working out of the University of Copenhagen, found charred crumbs in an ancient fireplace. They put them under an electron microscope, and they realized what they were looking at. Flatbread, burnt, 14,400-year-old flatbread, made by hunter-gatherers called the Natufians, ground from wild cereals and the tubers of a plant called clubrush, mixed with water, flattened, and baked on the hot stones of a fire. Here's why that number should stop you cold. It's 14,400 years old, which means it is thousands of years older than farming itself. These people baked bread before anyone knew how to grow the grain for it. They walked out, gathered wild seeds by hand, ground them, and made bread from scratch. For breakfast, maybe. Warm off the stone. Let that land. The oldest bread on earth wasn't made by a farmer. It was made by a hunter, with dirt under their nails, on the floor of the desert. Now, there's one more thing on the ancient menu, and it's the one that makes me feel closest to them, because it's the one thing on this whole list you and I still crave every single day. Something sweet. There is a cave in eastern Spain called Cuevas de la Araña, near a town called Bicorp. Painted on its wall, thousands of years ago, is a picture. We call the figure the Man of Bicorp, and he is doing something that will make your palms sweat just looking at it. He is climbing up a set of long, thin ropes or vines, dangling against a sheer rock face, high above the ground. In one hand, a basket. Around him, painted as little buzzing dashes, a swarm of angry bees. He is climbing to a wild hive. He is reaching, bare-handed, into a cloud of stinging insects. For one thing, honey. Think about how badly you have to want something sweet to do that. No shoes with grip, no rope you bought at a store, no first aid kit at the bottom, just you, a woven basket, a wall of rock, and 100 furious bees, because the taste of honey is worth the sting. That's not survival either. That's desire. That's the exact same sweet tooth that makes you reach for a donut this morning. It's been inside us the whole time. So let's put it all together. Let's walk through one ancient morning, start to finish. You wake before dawn, not to an alarm to the cold and the light and the sound of birds. Your stomach is already growling. There is no coffee. There is no cupboard. There is only the day ahead and the food you can find in it. You stir last night's fire back to life. You take the roots you dug yesterday and bury them in the coals. While they roast, you crack a handful of nuts. You grind a few wild seeds between two stones, add water, and set the paste near the flames until it thickens into a warm mush. Maybe, if yesterday was lucky, there's a scrap of honeycomb wrapped in leaves, a treasure, guarded, shared in tiny bites. Maybe there's cold meat left from a hunt 3 days back. You eat with your hands. You eat close to the fire. You eat with the people you would die for. All of you quiet, all of you grateful, because tomorrow's breakfast is never promised. That is the meal. Roots, seeds, nuts, grain, and a stolen taste of something sweet, earned, every single morning. From the dirt, with your own 2 hands. And now come back, all the way back to your kitchen. The box, the jug, the phone, the 90 seconds. Look at what's in your bowl. Grain that someone else grew, in a field you'll never see. Sugar sweeter than any honeycomb the man of Bicorp ever risked his life for. Milk poured, not fought for. A breakfast that would have looked like pure magic to every single ancestor who came before you. You didn't dig for it. You didn't climb for it. You didn't kneel in the ash and wait for the roots to cook. You just opened a box. Here's the thing. For 170,000 years, breakfast was the hardest question of the day. Now it's the easiest. That is the whole story of being human, hidden inside a cereal bowl. So, tomorrow morning, when you eat standing up, half asleep, scrolling stop just for 1 second. Somebody climbed a cliff of bees, so you'd know what sweet tastes like. The least you can do is taste it.